Welcome to the Smart Stack. I'm Patrick Burke here today with David Kennedy to talk about his architecture practice in Los Angeles. David is a West Coast architect licensed in California, Washington, and Oregon, specializing in custom residences, boutique hotels, and multifamily properties. His work blends architecture, interiors, and landscape to highlight indoor and outdoor living and authentic senses of place. A LEED accredited professional and Los Angeles self-certified architect, he incorporates sustainable strategies and expedites wildfire reconstruction. His award-winning hospitality projects have been widely published, earning recognition for design excellence and human-centered innovation. Thank you for being here, David.
Thank you.
David, every architect has a story about what drew them into design. What was that moment for you?
I think it was probably when I was a kid, skiing up at Mount Hood. Mm-hmm. And, if you know anything about Oregon ski weather, a lot of times you're just skiing into freezing rain.
Yeah.
And so you end up spending a lot of time inside. And, a lot of that time was spent inside the Timberline Lodge, which, if people don't know it, is a WPA huge old lodge project built in the 30s without probably a known architect, but just highly crafted. Just the result of the work of lots of craftsmen. And that probably was kind of my inspiring, place to be. And, I've sort of gone forward thinking about that. So.
Beautiful. So you're based in Los Angeles. What's your current perspective on the wildfire rebuild process?
What I've noticed so far is most of the rebuilding has been for buildings that were recently built, where essentially they just went back in with the permits and were able to reestablish new permits for the rebuilds. I think it's probably for a lot of the other homeowners, it's been a long process to kind of get to the point where they can decide to rebuild.
Sure.
And so I think that's probably what's been holding up a lot of the other projects.
Yeah, to lead on from that, what are the biggest challenges you see for homeowners who are looking to do those rebuilds, and the biggest challenges that they're facing right now?
Well, from what I've talked with homeowners, it's been financing and the lack of property insurance coverage to fully finance the rebuild. So, it's created a lot of hard decisions for homeowners. I think in a lot of cases, homeowners are deciding to rebuild something smaller than what they had. Also, I see people having to get a lot more creative about the financing and look at sources like property loss against their taxes and SBA loans and grants. And so all this takes more time to pull together.
Do you think that has changed how people look at what they're going to build overall? You mentioned that they're rebuilding smaller. Does that mean rebuilding smarter? Are we changing the way that we lay out a home? Are we changing the way that we engineer the home?
Well, I've been encouraging people to look at their home a little bit more efficiently. A lot of the older homes were very divided up into separate spaces.
Yeah.
So I've encouraged them to look at it as more, open living space where the living, dining, and kitchen are one area. Emphasize that area with height versus square footage, and then create this real good connection to outdoor living space where that extends out that space so that they're able to actually create more perceived space without as much built space.
In the context of the rebuilds and then also just your architecture practices in general, what do you think are the ways that you're encouraging clients to be more eco-friendly or sustainable as they build?
Well, I think that, sustainability is something that kind of have to like think about, throughout the whole process. And it's something that I've been working on for like over 20 years. And it's not necessarily doing sort of progressive materiality and technical aspects. It's really, in some respects, just doing more with less.
Sure.
Not, paying attention to what type of materials you're using. It's also just respecting the site that you're in and really using that to the maximum benefit. So, I think in terms of sustainability, it's really a holistic approach.
Sure. So we call this series Building Smarter Spaces, and with your experience in the design and build community for so long, where do you see in 10 years what smart living spaces look like and how that interfaces with the architecture and design of a living space?
Well, I think people don't realize how integrated houses and building structures are becoming with the technology that they're using. And it's changing very rapidly. If you go into like a house now and see all these coax outlets in every room and then realize I'm never going to connect to that, that's, sort of an example of how rapidly things change. I think that, there's all these individual systems that are kind of independent nodes on your phone, like security systems, potentially HVAC systems, your entertainment, and all of those don't all work separately, don't integrate very well. And I think that there'll become more systems that will start integrating all those systems and, probably include power management as well. And I think that the accessibility of those systems will become more prevalent and less cost. So I think it's really just sort of, understanding how those systems can come together. And, that's something that's going to advance quite a bit in the next 10 years.
We focus a lot on the technology receding into the background, where it just enhances a homeowner's life rather than adding on top of it another app, another set of buttons, another complication. We find that when it does recede into the background and just integrates into their life, it helps with wellness, it helps with enjoyment through the day in your home. How do you think architecture is involved in that in terms of fading into a person's life? How do you design a building to be more accessible to them without getting in their way?
Well, I think first of all, when you design a home, especially a custom home for a client, you really have to understand them as people, how they live their life inside their house. Whether they're very food focused, whether they are very entertainment focused, whether they love books and have a huge library. What do they, what keeps them going inside their home? And a lot of that also relates back to how you light spaces, how you choose those interaction points within those spaces. So I think that's where those sort of home integration systems come together to help support the lifestyle that people have within those homes. So.
Yeah, the intersection of materials, technology, lighting, really has become the focus, I think, of both architecture and interior design, where if you're building a scene with light in a room, we're using layers of light, and you have to consider the difference between the artificial light, the natural light, and how a person is going to experience that. I'm very interested to see what you think is the kind of evolution of that over the next decade. Do we think that all lighting is going to mimic outdoor light? Do you see that as a trend coming in the architecture space?
It's going to happen more within commercial spaces.
Okay.
I see less of it happening in a home, just because I think that homes kind of relate more back to kind of evolutionary, how we're, our sense of hearth.
Yeah.
So, that sort of nighttime ambience within a home and all of that, I think supports like warm light and, light that, kind of is more related to like fire or candle or, those sort of elemental types of light.
Yeah.
So I think that's where, people use their homes mostly in the evening, at night, and during the daytime, it's going to be mostly daylit if it's designed well anyway.
Sure.
So I think that's where, I think if you're really designing well, there's going to be emphasis on sort of that more natural, those traditional elements of light.
Yeah. I think that, to me, that perspective, that evolutionary perspective is very interesting, because what it highlights is that people want to feel safe and they want to feel comfortable in their homes. And oftentimes technology has not served those goals in the past. It has been a distraction.
Right.
And so a focus on comfort and safety is so important. I think that's probably the next decade. Hopefully more people will understand that we should be using technology to further those goals and maybe not the loudest or the brightest.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think where I like, technology helping right now is, for instance, overhead lighting, which you need in a space, but at night you want to be able to dim it down. And unless you've got really good lighting system, you're not going to dim it down to the point where it feels natural. And so, I think that, the newer technology, if you do it right, can achieve that.
Yeah, it is a transformative experience, really, where the architecture and the technology comes together and becomes, I think, more than the sum of its parts, right? You've got lighting that can truly mimic candlelight. You've got, spaces that are designed to have that light reflect naturally throughout so that it feels comfortable and warm and natural. Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective to look at that. Given your philosophy of designing for how people live, how does that inform your design of integration of indoor and outdoor spaces, where they come together, where those spaces meet?
Well, I think it's all sort of the elements that affect a space influence how the space feels. That you not only have to think about the architectural form, but the interiors, the furnishings, the landscaping, what type of plants do you have? What type of trees do you have? All of those things come together to really affect both the feel and the functionality of spaces. And so I try to think very holistically about how all those things happen. Even if I'm only doing the architecture, I'm still thinking about how the furnishings are placed in a space, and designing around that.
Yeah.
Thinking about how usable the spaces really are.
Where those indoor and outdoor spaces meet, how do you think about people going throughout their day and how they live that informs how you design that interaction?
Well, I think it's, really good to have sort of larger glass openings that can be pulled back to create that sort of extension of space. The outdoor space, you really have to think a lot about the shading of the space, not only for that space itself, but because at certain times of the day, the sun is going to shine in through those large glass openings and, affect, glare and warmth within that adjacent indoor space. So all those things have to come together to create that good indoor-outdoor connection. And then, of course, thinking about what happens on the outdoor, whether there's like outdoor cooking elements, whether you've got the outdoor dining area or just outdoor lounge spaces. And then, what's the view out into the adjacent garden? And, how do you create screening in a natural way from the adjacent properties to create privacy?
At this point in time, when you're designing those integrations between indoor and outdoor, and this is something that we have to think about a lot, are you taking into consideration the availability of like smart window treatments or shades that can adjust automatically to things like daylight to reduce glare, or nighttime when the light inside and outside flips to enhance privacy?
I like really kind of more passive systems. For windows, I really like just sort of ripple fold draperies.
Sure.
I think that those add a lot of elegance and also, can be really good for screening and privacy. I think actually one thing I've been a little bit more interested in is sort of outdoor shade systems, vertical for those glass areas, where I think, probably having those more automated could be a benefit. It's really kind of how, if you put them in front of sliding windows, then obviously that automation is going to be, that interaction is going to be an issue. So, but, I think shading systems on the outside for windows is obviously more efficient for, maintaining or reducing that sort of heat gain in through the windows.
I've definitely found the outdoor shading systems to be transformative, where we can generate almost an impromptu barrier and create an almost indoor room when we need it, and then have that be an outdoor room when we don't. Cut down on things like wind or like bugs outside can be a huge consideration. So I've really loved using those. Motorized ripple fold drapery is also a really cool technology that lets us
great.
Control those at an automated rate. So like when we've got sunlight coming in, if we've got UV damage as a consideration or artwork in a room, we can have an elegant solution like a ripple fold drapery that also comes in to protect things automatically, which is pretty cool.
To be done well, you have to consider what the stacking room is for that and really think about it as you're designing the whole space.
So you're a LEED certified architect. How does that commitment to sustainability affect your decisions when you're designing a home for residential versus commercial spaces?
Well, I guess just the background in LEED and the sort of having to understand the sort of things that go into a LEED certified building help in terms of decision making for homeowners if they're looking at things like rainwater capture or gray water systems, thinking about how to do daylighting and lighting more efficiently. Also just sort of the whole elimination of of toxic materials in, for indoor air quality, and focusing on the sort of materials that and finishes that really make a space stay healthy and feel healthy.
David, how can people reach out to learn more about you?
Well, probably the easiest way is to just Google David Kennedy Architect, and through my website, hit that button and set up a consultation appointment. And I'd love to talk with people.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us for the Smart Stack, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.